This video will explore the dissolution of the band The White Stripes. Megan Martha White, born December 10, 1974, is an American retired musician who served as the drummer and occasional singer of the rock duo The White Stripes. She is credited as one of the key artists in the garage rock revival of the 2000s and has won 6 Grammy Awards among many other accolades with the White Stripes. Rolling Stone included her on its list of the 100 greatest drummers of all time in 2016. She began playing the drums in 1997, a year after her 1996 marriage to Jack Gillis, and formed the White Stripes that same year. They enjoyed success within the Detroit music scene before achieving international fame with their 2001 breakthrough album White Blood Cells. While on tour in support of their 2007 album Icky Thump, she suffered a bout of acute anxiety, and the remaining dates of the tour were canceled. After a few public appearances and a hiatus from recording, the band disbanded in February 2011, and White retired from performing. White calls herself very shy and keeps a low public profile. She's said no to so many interviews it makes it hard to say yes to one, Elle magazine reported in 2022. While in the White Stripes, Meg and Jack portrayed themselves as siblings. However, they were actually a couple, married in 1996 and divorced in 2000, before the band became well known. It's unknown when their intimacy actually ended, however. From 2009 to 2013, Meg was married to guitarist Jackson Smith, the son of musicians Patti Smith and Fred Sonic Smith, with her wedding occurring in Jack's Nashville backyard. She was born in the affluent Detroit suburb of Grosse Pointe Farms, Michigan, which is a wonderful neighborhood if you're ever in that area. She has an older sister, Heather. She attended Grosse Pointe North High School and, according to one classmate, was always the quiet, obviously artistic type, and she kept very much to herself. While still in high school, she decided not to go to college and instead pursue a career as a chef. She began to work at Memphis Smoke, a restaurant in downtown Royal Oak, where she first met budding musician and upholsterer Jack Gillis, a fellow high school senior from a Detroit neighborhood known as Mexican Town, and they frequented the coffee shops, local music venues, and record stores of the area. Memphis Smoke has since shut down. Jack would visit the coffee shop where she was working as a barista just to see her, in one account. Michigan has a remarkable history in music development and release, with artists like Lord Huron joining the White Stripes in fame. According to the band, on Bastille Day of 1997, Meg tried playing Jack's drum kit on a whim. Jack would later say that her playing his drums gave him great feeling. When she started to play drums with me just on a lark, it felt liberating and refreshing. There was something in it that opened me up. The two then formed the White Stripes, a name which originated both from their last name and Meg's love of peppermint, and soon played their first gig at the Gold Dollar in Detroit. They leaned into the red, white, black aesthetic. Their live performances were made of 3 basic elements, and 3 would be a very important number to Jack White. There was Meg on the drums, Jack on the guitar, and singing. Jack is a skilled lyricist and wrote the lyrics of the songs, but Meg was the muse a lot of the time. Jack and Meg presented themselves as siblings to an unknowing public and kept to the chromatic theme. Jack justified the sibling charade by stating people judged bands more on the music and less on the members' personal relations, when bands were comprised of siblings rather than lovers. They began their career as part of Michigan's underground garage rock music scene. In 1998, the band signed with Italy Records, a small and independent Detroit-based garage punk label of Dave Buick. White would eventually found 3 Man Records with its classic black and yellow aesthetic. Buick would later reminisce that the popularity was hard for him to take, and so he couldn't imagine how Meg felt as quiet as she was. The White Stripes released their self-titled debut album in 1999, and a year later, the album was followed up by the cult classic De Stijl, named for a Dutch architectural style that died out in the 1970s, which was categorized by colorful rectangles. Proponents of De Stijl advocated for pure abstraction. This movement, coming from the Art Deco city of Detroit, should surprise no one. The White Stripes helped establish hipster culture among millennials, with skinny jeans, no logos or labels on their clothes, moppy hair, cigarettes, and thrifted clothing. The reactionary style of De Stijl for a hipster band from Art Deco Detroit is no surprise. De Stijl eventually peaked at number 38 in Billboard's Independent Albums chart. Although they were divorced in 2000, Meg insisted they keep the band going. Jack White is a very intense individual, and his intensity contrasted well with Meg's stoic attitude. It also seems White never stopped loving her. He still writes her birthday messages on his Instagram every year. This is the one from December 10th, 2023. Happy birthday to the incredible, intelligent, talented, sweet, and angelic Meg White. His work on other musical projects, such as Jack White, Olivia Jean, reveal him combing the long dark hair of his third wife, Olivia Jean, who looks a lot like Meg. The White Stripes rose to widespread recognition in 2001 with the release of their album White Blood Cells, which brought them to the forefront of the garage rock revival and made them one of the most acclaimed bands the following year. This success was propelled with the release of their 2003 album Elephant, which similarly earned acclaim, and its first single, Seven Nation Army, became the band's signature song and a sports anthem. Just as Jack wanted, several writers started writing about their music only, and all music called Meg's drumming hypnotic and explosively minimal. Bram Tettleman of Billboard described it as simple but effective. Their later albums, 2005's Get Behind Me, Satan, and 2007's Icky Thump, each won acclaim and Grammy Awards. Get Behind Me, Satan raises an interesting query as to whether White is or was a Satanist. In canon, the song, he sings that he's been evil. Expecting also seems to be about giving something away, making a deal with Satan. In St. Andrew, White sings, Where Are My Angels? Meg occasionally sang for the White Stripes, most notably performing lead vocals on In the Cold, Cold Night from Elephant and Passive Manipulation from Get Behind Me, Satan. Meg White appeared on the cover of Whirlwind Heat's single Pink in a Detroit Cobras music video Cha Cha Twist as Little Red Riding Hood, and appeared with Jack White in a segment of Jim Jarmusch's 2003 film Coffee and Cigarettes. She has also done modeling for Marc Jacobs' 2006 Spring line. Her appearance as this silent, clever figure influenced the manic pixie dream girl archetype of the time. She was chosen by Bob Odenkirk to compose a drum theme for Dax Shepard's character in the 2006 film Let's Go to Prison, but this theme was scrapped. She's also appeared in the March 2006 issue of Elle. The White Stripes guest starred on The Simpsons in an episode titled Jazzy and the Pussycats, which first aired in September 2006. Around the height of her fame, a fake adult film supposedly starring her was released. She never commented on it publicly, but it must have hurt her. In the summer of 2007, before a show in South Haven, Mississippi, Ben Blackwell, Jack's nephew and the group's archivist, says that Meg approached him and said, "This is the last White Stripes show." He asked if she meant of the tour, but she responded, "No, I think this is the last show, period." On September 11th, 2007, the White Stripes announced via their website that they were canceling 18 tour dates due to Meg's acute anxiety. The following day, the duo canceled the remainder of their 2007 UK tour dates as well. Jack worked with other artists during this time, but Meg remained largely out of the public eye, although in June 2008 she appeared briefly on stage during an encore set of a Detroit show with one of Jack's bands, the Raconteurs. Maybe she was planning on joining this band, or she was asked to join this band, but she never really did. In an interview with Music Radar, Jack explained that Meg's acute anxiety had been due to the combination of a very short pre-tour rehearsal time that was further reduced by the birth of his daughter in 2005 and a hectic multi-continental touring schedule. He said, "I just came from a raconteurs tour and went right into that, so I was already full speed. Meg had come from a dead halt for a year and went right back into that madness." In his review of Under Great White Northern Lights for Vanity Fair, Bill Bradley commented on the tour cancellations, saying it was impossible not to see Meg as road-weary and worn out at the end of the film. But Jack wasn't stopping. He revealed the band's plan to release a seventh album by the summer of 2009. In February 2009, on the final episode of Late Night with Conan O'Brien, the White Stripes made their first and what would be their last live appearance after the cancellation of their tours, performing the song We're Going to Be Friends, which featured on the hipster classic Napoleon Dynamite soundtrack. Meg appeared alongside Jack in the 2009 documentary film It Might Get Loud. A documentary about their Canadian tour, titled The White Stripes Under Great White Northern Lights, premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in September 2009, so perhaps Meg was looking to move into film, but seems unlikely. You can see how much Meg loves Jack in the footage of the two of them. A second feature entitled Under Nova Scotian Lights was prepared for the DVD release. However, almost 2 years passed with no new releases. In 2011, the band reported on their official website that they were disbanding. They emphasized it was not due to health issues or artistic differences, but mostly to preserve what is beautiful and special about the band. Jack's daughter, White Karen Elson, interestingly, is named Scarlet, perhaps as a tribute to the red in the White Stripes schematic. Since the breakup of the White Stripes, Jack White seemed to literally fall into the blues. His color palette is all blue, perhaps reflecting the blues music genre he plays. In his music video for Freedom at 21, a close-up shot of an actress's fingernails reveals red and white stripes and blue for the American flag. This seems to be a goodbye or homage to the White Stripes in his new career. He also dyed his hair blue and wears blue stars, which is a seeming inverse to White Stripes. The path of the hipster seems to go one of two ways. Either they stick to middle-of-the-road normalcy, nothing extreme as they age, or they move into wokedom to stay relevant. In the White Stripes case, they objected when Seven Nation Army was used at a Trump rally. Meg White told Rolling Stone in 2005 that the more you talk, the less people listen. As of 2014, she was residing in Detroit, and White lived in Nashville. In May 2009, she married guitarist Jackson Smith in a small ceremony, but they divorced in July 2013. She seemingly has no children. In one interview, Jack seemed to be sadly telling the interviewer that he absolutely never hears from Meg. He reminisced that he used to have to drive to her home in Michigan to talk to her since she wouldn't pick up the phone. The song Icky Thump actually was named by White's second wife, Vogue model Karen Elson, as she used the term on the set of a music video. Here's where we start to see the partnership creatively break down. 5 years after the White divorce, with the two still touring and writing music together, Jack White met Karen Elson and had a child with her in 2005. He met her on the set of one of the White Stripes music videos, Blue Orchid. Meg was watching her ex-husband and musical partner fall in love with another woman, a model 5 years her junior, on their music video set. In the music video for Icky Thump, Meg White is sporting red hair, similarly like Elson's. Karen Elson's North English speech influences are used by White in songs, whereas Meg's silence or lack of speech was something noted upon by critics and Jack White himself, who mentioned that he would ask her for feedback and simply hear an empty room. White and Elson married in Brazil at the convergence of 3 rivers, reflecting White's love for the number 3, and it isn't clear if Meg was invited or even present. In contrast, her second wedding was hosted by Jack White himself. In reference to her primal approach to drumming, Meg remarked, "That is my strength. A lot of drummers would feel weird about being that simplistic." She expanded by saying that I appreciate other kinds of drummers who play differently, but it's not my style or what works for this band. I get criticism sometimes, and I go through periods where it really bothers me. But then I think about it, and I realize that this is what is really needed for this band, and I just try to have as much fun with it as possible. This statement seems to support that Jack is the huge creative energy behind the White Stripes, and Meg supplies a sort of baseline for that energy. Her pre show warm up included whiskey and Red Bull. NPR dubbed her the 21st century's loudest introvert. This is in contrast to Elson, who by all accounts is very outspoken. The Elson and White divorce became messy after a divorce party in 2011 termed a positive swing bang humdinger. Elson accused White of abuse and threats, and White accused Elson of still being in love with him. Elson was granted a restraining order against White in 2013, with a Nashville judge branding White as a bully and a harasser. But then years later, Elson mentioned her ex-husband in an interview as the one who actually jump-started her music career. Making $62,000 a month at the time, Jack White was not awarded custody of his 2 children by a Nashville judge. Elson's lawyer went as far as to demand a psychiatric evaluation of White. The divorce between Meg and Jack was nowhere close to the drama of this. Why did Jack marry a woman so different from Meg? And Elson did not hesitate to get involved with a Twitter dispute about Meg's drumming in 2023, demanding that a journalist keep her ex-husband's ex-wife's name out of his mouth. No wonder Meg didn't want to deal with all that drama. Rolling Stone included White on its 2016 list of the 100 greatest drummers of all time and wrote that her idiosyncratic, primal take on drumming was fundamental to the appeal of the White Stripes, who rode their candy-colored outfits and stripped-down blues to rock stardom in the early aughts. Meg's commitment to the aesthetic is apparent, and this seems to not only be a commitment to the art, but a commitment to Jack White and his visions. NME included her on its 2018 list of 32 of the best drummers to grace rock and roll. She was deemed rock music's most compelling Styxwoman by Universal Music Group in 2022. Jack White married again before an audience in his hometown of Detroit in 2022 to Olivia Jean, who is signed to his record label Black Bells. She is 14 years his junior. In White, we see this modeling of women, Meg White dyeing her hair red and White ending up with a red-headed model, the model then taking up music just like him, and now he is married to one of his proteges. But Meg White stands alone. She reflects a musician's professionalism that has long since passed and provides a contrast to many female artists who go for explosions and vulgarity. She stands alone as this sort of beat that Jack White built himself around. What is your favorite White Stripes song?